Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into the core truth about rubrics, drawing from a major study. And the headline, they seem to significantly boost academic performance.
Yeah, that's the main takeaway.
We know you want the essential knowledge, efficiently. So let's unpack how these grading tools, which seem to be everywhere, actually impact learning.
Uh-huh.
We've sifted through a big meta-analytic review, which basically means a study that pulls together the results from lots and lots of other studies.
Right. Gives us a much more solid overview, a bigger picture, than just one single study could.
Exactly. Think of it like looking at, I don't know, hundreds of puzzle pieces to finally see the whole image.
That's a good way to put it. And this one focused on how rubrics affect three really key areas. First, your academic performance, your grades, basically.
Okay.
Second, your ability to manage your own learning. We call that self-regulated learning.
Right, taking control.
Precisely. And third, that belief in yourself, your confidence that you can actually succeed, your self-efficacy.
Got it. And, most people listening have probably run into rubrics loads of times, right? For essays, presentations, projects.
Oh, definitely. Teachers use them for all sorts of things.
But what's kind of surprising is that until this big review, we didn't have a really clear, systematic picture of how much difference they actually make.
Yeah, lots of opinions, maybe some smaller studies, but not this kind of comprehensive look.
So, have you ever gotten a rubric and thought, okay, I see the points, but is this really helping me learn better? Or just check boxes?
Yeah, that's a common thought.
Well, that's exactly the question we're diving into today.
Okay, so first things first, let's make sure we're on the same page. What is a rubric, fundamentally?
Good point.
Well, if we draw on Susan Brookhart's definition, it's basically a tool that spells out the expectations for a piece of work.
Spells them out how?
It lists the specific things being evaluated, those are the criteria, and then, crucially, it describes different levels of quality for each of those criteria.
Okay, so like excellent, good, needs improvement kind of thing.
Exactly. Describes what excellent looks like for, say, organization, and what needs improvement looks like for the same thing, usually across a quality continuum.
So it's definitely more than just a checklist then.
Oh, absolutely. The key parts are those evaluative criteria and the quality definitions. Some rubrics have scores attached, sure, but not all. Some are just for feedback, for learning formative purposes.
Right, not just for the final grade.
Correct. And you often see them laid out in a table, right? Like a grid. Criteria down the first column.
Like use of evidence or clarity.
Exactly. And then the performance levels across the top row, maybe labels like outstanding, proficient, basic, deficient, something like that.
And the boxes describe what each level means for each criterion.
You got it. Makes the expectations much clearer.
Okay, that makes sense. They seem like a pretty standard educational tool now, but where do they actually come from? Are they new?
Well, yes and no. The term rubric actually has this surprisingly long history. It goes back to the 15th century.
No, what?
Yeah. Originally, it just meant the headings in books or manuscripts, often written in red ink. Ruber is Latin for red, so.
Red headings. So how did we get from that to grading papers?
That jump happened much later, mostly in the 20th century. People started looking for ways to make grading more reliable, especially for things like writing quality, which can be pretty subjective.
Trying to make it more objective.
Exactly. Folks like Hillegas back in 1912 and then Diederik and his team in the 60s were really pioneers here. They worked on developing scales and criteria to score things like essays more consistently. Diederik's work identifying key writing traits sort of laid the groundwork for the kinds of rubrics we see now.
Oh, so it evolved over quite a while, and it feels like their use has just exploded recently.
Oh, completely. The 21st century saw this huge surge in both using rubrics in classrooms and researching them. Some people point to a paper by Popham in 1997 as maybe a catalyst.
Okay.
But yeah, the number of studies mentioning rubrics just kept climbing. And interestingly, the focus shifted too. Well, initially, it was mostly about summative assessment, judging the final product, giving a grade.
Right, the end result.
But then there was this big push, thanks to people like Grant Wiggins and others, to use them formatively.
Meaning, to help with the learning process.
Exactly. To support learning while it's happening. To help students understand the goals, see where they are, and figure out how to improve, making them more self-regulated learners.
That makes a lot of sense. If you know the target, you've got a better chance of hitting it.
Precisely.
But I know there's been some debate, right? Like, does giving students the exact criteria just make them focus on ticking boxes instead of really learning?
Yeah, that's the criteria compliance argument you sometimes hear. It's a valid concern. Do rubrics sometimes lead to superficial learning?
So what does the research say? Is it a real problem?
Well, it's something the researchers in this meta-analysis were aware of. But what they found, looking across all the studies, is that there isn't actually strong empirical evidence to back up that concern on a large scale.
Ah, so it's more anecdotal maybe.
It seems that way, mostly. The overall evidence still strongly suggests that sharing criteria with students via rubrics is generally a good thing. The benefits of transparency seem to outweigh those potential downsides based on the data we have now.
Okay, that's really good to clarify. So we know what they are, roughly where they came from, this shift to formative use. Let's get to the core findings of this big meta-analysis. What did it actually show about the impact, starting with maybe academic performance?
Right, the bottom line for many students and teachers. The big news here is that overall, rubrics showed a moderate and positive effect on academic performance.
Moderate and positive. Okay.
Yeah, after they did statistical corrections for potential publication bias, that's the idea that studies with positive results get published more often.
Right, got to account for that.
After accounting for that, the effect size, which they measured using something called Hedges G, was 0.45.
And 0.45 is pretty
It's
decent.
It is. Educational researcher John Hattie has benchmarks, and anything around 0.40 is considered a desired effect, meaning it's making a visible, practical difference in learning.
Okay, so a noticeable improvement.
Definitely. They also looked at improvement over time using rubrics called standardized mean change, and that also came out as a medium positive effect, 0.38, so consistent evidence there.
That's pretty compelling for performance. What about the other two areas, self-regulated learning and self-efficacy?
There, the effects were positive but smaller. For self-regulated learning, that's the managing your own learning bit, the overall pooled effect was Hedges G of 0.23.
Smaller, okay.
And for self-efficacy, the confidence piece, it was smaller still at 0.18.
So positive bumps, but not as dramatic as the performance boost.
Exactly. Rubrics seem to help a bit with managing learning and building confidence, but the main impact, according to this huge body of research, is really on the academic achievement itself.
Okay, so headline. Rubrics help grades. Maybe help a bit with managing learning and confidence. Did the study look into why or what makes some rubrics work better than others, like moderator variables?
Absolutely, that was a big part of it. They wanted to see if certain factors changed how effective rubrics were. Things like, the age of the students, the education level, how the rubric was designed, how it was used.
Makes sense.
That
What did they find there? Let's start with age or education level.
Okay, this was interesting. When they looked at the improvement in academic performance over time, there was a slight trend suggesting the effect decreased as the average age of the students went up.
Oh, so younger students might get more benefit in terms of improvement.
It kind of looked that way, but, and this is important, when they just looked at overall performance effects by education level, secondary education actually showed a slightly higher effect than primary or middle school.
Huh. That seems contradictory.
It makes the age relationship a bit complex, yeah. It could be due to different types of tasks, how rubrics are used at different levels, or maybe just limitations in the data for certain age groups. So they urged caution in interpreting the age factor too strongly.
Okay, so the age thing is a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
What about the rubric itself? Like, does having more criteria or more levels like excellent, good, fair, poor make it better?
That was one of the really surprising findings, actually.
Yeah.
The number of criteria or the number of performance levels on the rubric did not significantly change the effect on academic performance.
Really? You'd think more detail would be more helpful.
You might think so,
Yeah.
but this suggests that maybe the basic structure, just having clear criteria and defined levels, is the most important part. The specific number of boxes, maybe less so.
Interesting. So perhaps clarity is more important than complexity.
That could be one interpretation, yeah, as long as it clearly communicates the expectations.
Okay. What about how the rubrics were used? Did involving students, like with self-assessment or peer assessment, make a difference?
Yes, and here the results were quite telling, especially for self-regulated learning.
Ah, the managing your own learning part.
Exactly. The positive effect on self-regulated learning was noticeably larger when rubrics were used together with both self-assessment and peer assessment, compared to just using them for self-assessment alone.
So using the rubric to judge your own work and give feedback to others or get feedback from them, that combination seems powerful for learning how to manage learning.
It really suggests that, yes, that active engagement, seeing different perspectives through the rubrics lens, seems key for developing those self-regulation skills.
And for academic performance, did self or peer assessment help there too?
For academic performance, using rubrics with either self-assessment or peer assessment showed similar positive effects. Just involving students actively with the rubric seemed beneficial for performance.
Right. So active use is good.
Right.
Were there other factors they checked that didn't seem to matter much?
Yeah, they looked at a bunch of other things too, like the year the study was published, the gender breakdown of the students, how many times rubrics were used in the intervention, the type of research design, even the assessed quality of the original study.
Mhm.
None of those significantly moderated the effect on academic performance in this particular analysis.
Wow. So the core finding about performance seems pretty robust across different conditions.
It does seem that way, based on this analysis.
Okay, so pulling this all together,
Yeah.
what's the big picture conclusion from this meta-analysis? It feels like stronger proof for rubrics than we had before.
Absolutely. Compared to older, maybe less systematic reviews, this provides much stronger, more quantitative evidence that, yes, rubrics generally do have a positive impact, especially, as we've said, on academic performance.
But it's not the end of the story, right? What do the researchers say we still need to figure out?
Definitely not the end. A key area for future research is understanding the mechanisms. Like, how do rubrics actually work? What's going on in a student's head when they use one effectively?
Right. What's the process?
Exactly. They suggest using methods like maybe eye tracking to see what parts of the rubric students focus on, or think aloud protocols where students talk through their process while using a rubric, getting inside the black box a bit more.
That makes sense. See how they're used, not just that they're used.
Precisely. And they also stress the need for more focused research on that self-regulated learning connection. It's complex, and we need to unpack how rubrics can best support different aspects of it.
And anything else for future studies?
A really crucial practical point they made is about reporting. Future studies need to be much clearer and more detailed in describing the rubrics they used, what did they actually look like, and exactly how they were implemented in the classroom.
So other researchers can understand and compare studies better.
Exactly. In fact, the authors of this meta-analysis actually developed an instrument, a kind of checklist, to help researchers report these details consistently. It's available online, apparently.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, a practical step. They also mentioned looking at long-term effects and transfer, like, does using rubrics help students on tasks later on, even without a rubric?
Good questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the listener. Someone interested in learning efficiently, understanding better. What are the practical implications here?
Well, I think the main one is encouraging, that moderate positive effect on academic performance. It suggests that when your teachers or instructors use rubrics clearly, it really can help you understand the goalposts and improve your work. It's not just administrative hoops to jump through.
So pay attention to those rubrics.
Yeah, engage with them. And even though the effects on self-regulated learning and self-efficacy were smaller, they're still there. It hints that rubrics, especially when used actively for self or peer feedback, can nudge you towards taking more ownership and building confidence.
And the finding that the specific number of boxes or criteria didn't matter that much,
Yeah.
maybe that's reassuring too.
Could be. It suggests you don't necessarily need a hyper-complex, overwhelming rubric. A clear, well-structured one, used effectively by the instructor, can still be quite beneficial.
Right. And maybe that finding about younger learners potentially showing more improvement,
Mm-hmm.
it might prompt listeners to reflect on their own early school experiences.
Exactly. Thinking back, how were rubrics used? Did they help you then? Reflecting on that personal history can be insightful.
Okay, so wrapping it all up, this deep dive really solidifies the idea that rubrics are generally a positive force in education.
Yeah, a moderate boost to performance, smaller boost to self-regulation and confidence. That seems to be the consensus from a large body of research.
And while lots of factors were explored, the core message holds. Rubrics seem to be a valuable tool.
That's the gist of it.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Given that the nitty-gritty details of rubric, the number of boxes, criteria didn't seem to be the deciding factor in this big analysis, maybe the real key isn't the rubric itself, but the way it's used. The intention behind it, the clarity it brings, how educators facilitate its use. Perhaps that's what truly makes the difference for learners like you.
That's a really interesting point to ponder, the implementation.
What's been your personal experience? Have some rubrics felt much more helpful than others, maybe regardless of how complicated they looked? Something to think about next time you encounter one in your learning journey. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
My pleasure. It was interesting to unpack.